Well, welcome friends. I hope you can hear the peaceful atmosphere around me. I'm hearing the birds chirping right now. It's so beautiful. Thought I'd just give a moment to let them speak. So if you don't know me, my name's Morgan. I'm a mom of 4 kids. We recently moved to a new home in October, and we have been spending the winter kind of renovating the inside of the house, and I've been spending the spring and now the summer renovating the outside of the house. The home had fallen into just disrepair, and the outside had been completely overgrown. The person who lived here had passed away 2 years ago and fell into an estate sale, so it just needed a lot of love. It just felt like this home was waiting for someone to come and just help it breathe again and rip all the overgrowth and weeds away. And I love gardening. I really enjoyed at our last house experimenting and trying out different plants and having many failures too. And it gave me a great training ground for what I wanted to do here. And so I love the style of a cottage garden. And I knew that was going to be my inspiration with the stuff here, except I find that cottage gardens can be a little too messy for the modern suburban house because we live in a neighborhood and it takes a lot of weed maintenance because they tend to be very like overgrown, and I love the wild side of them, but I also love the structure and form of more formal and tend to be like French gardens. And so I knew I wanted a mix of both in this garden, and I've been working tirelessly to think through. Our zone is a 6B. We live in Kentucky, so it does get pretty cold here. And I had to make sure that I put plants in that can handle the hot heat of our summer, but also the cold of our winter. And if you're beginning gardening, or if that drew you to this video, make sure to check out what zone you live in. You can check that out online. And also think about the light in your yard. That's where I had to start. I had to think about what areas got full sun, shade, part shade sun. And so I wasn't in a rush to put everything in. I took my time. I watched our house during the day and where the sun rose and set. And I just started developing plans from there. Speaking of, I think the sun's going down now, so I can take off my hat. I've been working outside so much, I'm trying to stay in the shade most of the day when I can. Our summer, man, it's really kicking off here. It got to 95 degrees yesterday, so whew, we're having a heat wave. But I wanted to just take you guys through the plants that I've put in and talk about some of the mistakes I've learned. And I will begin with the very first mistake. And I just want to caution you, if you're putting in new plantings, is I looked for perennials first, which perennials are the kind of plants that come back every year. Annuals only will last that summer. They'll die out. They won't come back. And they're beautiful, and people typically fill their planters with annuals, or they put them in window boxes, or they, put them on the edges of beds. So I wanted perennials. I love a lot of perennials. But one of the mistakes I made is I should have started with things that have winter interest. And I've since learned you want to look for things like boxwoods and evergreens and the things that will hold their leaves green year round, and put those in first as your structure. Because if you jump to your perennials, they're gonna be beautiful during the summer, but they're all gonna die back during the winter. And a true garden is one that has year-round interest. So I wanted perennials and my evergreens, meaning they're evergreen. They don't shed their leaves. And start by showing you guys the main beds of the house, because this was the largest space that I had to fill. We got lucky that these beautiful daylilies were already here. But this was so overgrown with bushes as tall as the house itself. He had some burning bushes. They had completely overgrown. There was weeds just everywhere. So we originally, when we moved in October, we had a crew come and just rip everything out. But because these were perennials, these were dormant. So they obviously didn't get ripped out, and they came back with a vengeance this summer. I think they're just so happy that they weren't, the light wasn't obscured, and they've just bloomed beautifully all summer. So I have kind of an issue with primary colors like bright yellows. I'll be honest, I don't like them in my garden. I typically want more cooler colors, which is why I chose like white hydrangeas and the pink and blue salvias. But since these are doing so beautiful here this summer and they give me a border, and also you have to pace things out financially, you can't do it all at once, I'm gonna leave these. And I looked it up. There is actually a white version of daylilies that next year I would like to entertain the idea of ripping these out. I know it sounds terrible, and I will give them away if there's friends or people I know that want them, they can have them. And replacing this border with a white daylily, because I love the fluffiness of the, maybe fluffy is not the right word, the just whimsical look of the grass and how it's just spread out like that, but I don't like the color. So yellow is too much of a primary pop. Another challenging spot that I faced was this corner, and it's especially discouraging as a gardener when you first put plants in and how small they are versus looking at the tags and seeing how big they'll get, because sometimes it can look like you just have way too much space and your bed's not filled in enough, and it could take years for them to get established. But that's one of those kind of common mistakes, is people try and fill in this space too much, and those plants get overcrowded. So I've got here a limelight hydrangea, and I have 2 Miss Kim Lilacs. I'm still not sure if I'm going to leave these here, because they said they can get 8 to 10 feet tall, but they're very slow growers. So it would take years, I think, for them to get to the height I want to fill this corner in. And we also found one day at the local garden shop, this little Arborvitae was on sale for like $15. It's super cute and tiny. Obviously, Arborvitaes can get massive. Here is one on the corner of our house that is crooked, and I probably should have had them rip it out, but it's still growing green, so I just left it. But like, that's how tall it can get. And we actually have one on the other corner of our house over there that is straight, and those are probably 30-year-old Arborvitaes. So in this corner, this particular one could get very tall and give me lots of structure, but it's just gonna take years. So I might end up moving these plants to the side of the house somewhere and look for something that will grow a little bit faster, because I really want some greenery. This corner just feels really bare with the water spout. So if you guys have any ideas for that, absolutely leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And these boxwoods were here as well. We left them, but they had a lot of overgrowth and they were dead. They have a lot of like dead stems underneath. So we gave them a good trim and tried to take out as much of the dead as we could. And we're letting them just kind of revive this summer and see if they come back, because they are evergreen and they add the really nice structure to this large space. Over here, I have a butterfly bush. This was really beautiful blooms. This was also supposed to get really big and fill in this corner here. I kind of want to go read up on it a little bit more and look at the tag because it seems to be really slow growing. Whereas there's some things I planted, like this hydrangea I planted just a few weeks ago, and it was like this tall, and all of this has shot out as new growth. And this one just doesn't seem to be growing very much for my liking in the first season. But perhaps the best thing I need to learn as a gardener is patience. Over here we have a white rose that's kind of like a ground cover one. Actually, I see a wasp circling it right now, so I'm going to keep my distance. We have a hydrangea here. And then I planted a couple of these lamb's ears because they're just beautiful for a border, and my kids love stroking the fuzzy leaves. They think it's so cool that this plant feels like a stuffed animal. So these are really fun if you have kids. You can take them and let them feel the leaves, and they have this soft, almost fuzzy fur on them, and they actually will spread out and fill a border over time. So it's just something I might actually plant more in the future on the border here. And then again, thinking through the future, I planted, this is a version of an Arborvitae that has a really green glowing color. And I'll leave a list of these plants below in the description of this video. And this one's only supposed to get 6 feet tall because I didn't want, this is one of our bedroom windows here. I didn't want it blocked. And so it will grow up, but it's gonna take a few years. And so in the meantime, I planted, I believe this is an Eden, I think it's an Eden climbing rose. And I'm gonna kind of train this up, this trellis, but if it outgrows this, I would like to learn how to do the hooks on the walls where you can do a little hook and wire system where I could maybe grow it up this wall so that by the time this grows in, I have the rose going up. The other thing is I have never trained anything up a trellis, guys. So this is my first year learning and trying. This, when I bought it, was already quite tall. I actually bought it from our local Sam's Club. They had it on this like tripod of bamboo sticks. I think it was about here in height. And so what we did is we carefully removed the sticks, planted it, and then I tied it to this trellis with just some, I don't know what this is, almost like a grass string. I actually had it in there in my gift wrapping stuff, so not very professional here. But I've watched a few videos on how to keep training it, and you can see the brighter green is the new growth. And one of the things they say is just to kind of take that new growth and keep kind of tucking it in. So like this one's popping out a little bit here. So maybe to just very carefully tuck that behind that leaf so it has support. And down here, here's another one just kind of wanting to go out wild on the wall. And I would just kind of bring that in and just tuck it around. See, and it just stays there very carefully. This is very thorny rose bush. And I know a lot of people avoid rose bushes because they think they're so difficult. I've just found that they're one of those plants that if I just leave it alone, occasionally if I get a pest, I spray it with 7 spray. But I mean, as long as I water them, and sometimes I just come and pick the dead leaves off, like this one's about done. So I just kind of pinch that off. I mean, it does really well. So this is supposed to be a beautiful bush spring into the fall. It's supposed to turn a gorgeous yellow color. I'll have to look up, it was kind of a new design. I'll look up exactly what that one was. And then over here, I have another one of those white rose bushes. I planted winter Gem Boxwoods that we got at Costco for a great deal through here. So those are gonna be my winter structure. And then to show you that not everything's complete yet, I really believe that we need 2 large evergreen type structural things that flank our entrance here. I would like to get some cone-shaped type of boxwoods or something that will hold winter interest in this bed. So I've actually left 2 spaces completely open for them. And in the meantime, I've planted some annuals here. This is, I think it's called lobelia. I'm not sure if you say it lobelia. It's Lobelia. And my husband, he's in love with these. He says they almost glow luminescent. It's like the perfect shade of blue. I don't know if you can see how vibrant these are, but they're just a very dainty flower. These, I put them in the ground, but they would actually be really pretty in pots. They were about half this size when I planted them a couple weeks ago. So they are multiplying, but I feel like they might even love a pot even better to be really protected. This is a, like a spreading phlox that will just kind of fill in this area over time. And then I also put a second lamb's ear right here with the little fuzzy, fuzzy leaves. And then I've got a hydrangea here. If I ever do put a structured plant here, this may not get enough sun, so I might have to move it, but I'll figure that out. Then of course, just some pots on my porch. This particular pot is oregano, so I think it's oregano. And I've been coming out, it smells amazing, like an Italian herb. I've just been coming out and taking a little bit and adding it to my spaghetti, or my sauce. I think that it's a great idea to use the pots and planters on your porches or near your home to get stuff that you might use or herbs, because obviously if I put this in the ground, oh, that's actually really pretty. I never even noticed that before. It's putting off the tiniest, sweetest little flowers. Oh, and I see the buds all over it. It looks like it's about to flower. Oh, that's going to be gorgeous. But I feel like in the ground, this would look like a weed. And so it does smell like oregano. It looks fun here, but I wanted it contained so it doesn't mess up the ground. Over here we have more of the lobelia, more petunias. These are just wave petunias. I've got Supertunia Drift Vista here, and this is just an experiment. I just want to see which one gets bigger. I planted this one a couple weeks before, so it's had a little more time to grow. I just planted this like 2 days ago. It was super tiny in a little pot, and supposedly these grow better and faster than the wave, the Supertunia Drift. So I'm kind of in a little competition to see which one spreads out more. And in the future, I love white petunias just on edges, how gorgeous they get all summer. So I will plant whichever one I like better again in the future. So we have some daisies here. These will spread and come back every year, perennial. Now these things may look like weeds, but the reason I'm leaving these green plants in the cold months, I think it was February, I planted some kind of bulb. I think it was for dahlias. I want to say dahlias. It could have been something else. I don't know. It's kind of a mystery because I threw away the bags, and so I've been giving them a chance. They've been coming up with their greenery. They're all looking the same. And I just want to see what kind of flower they put out. I wish in hindsight, and if you guys ever go to plant bulbs, that I had just clumped them all together in one space, because they look really spread out and random, and it does make them look like weeds. So just learn from my mistake. If you buy any of those bags of bulbs, I had bought mine at Costco, I think, and I put them in the dirt, just spread them all out, and now this is what it looks like coming up. So I'm hoping that they will come up with beautiful blooms, and maybe once they do, and if I like it, I can move them and replant them in the fall, maybe clumped over there in a certain spot. So these bushes back here are azaleas, but it's a hybrid, a new version that's supposed to bloom, it said, like all summer. However, I've just planted them, so I don't know if they're gonna bloom at all this year. I just put them in the ground. My little rose garden was my most fun surprise in my garden this year, because I had got some bare root roses from Sam's Club. They had no blossoms on them. They were just the stems. And I planted those in February, or no, March, I think, just when the ground had started to thaw. They say to get them in the ground when it's still cold out. And I had no idea what colors they would come up. They were just kind of mystery roses. So these right here, this one's kind of in its end stage of the blooms. It'll send out more soon. But this is one of the bare roots. But let me show you. This is another one of them that turned out exactly the same. And it has the most gorgeous, now this one, let's pinch those off. It's done there. Just like that. That's how I pruned my, the most gorgeous pink, like pale pink, beautiful blooms. So, I mean, I took a risk. I planted this bare root, and this is what has come up in the spring, and it's just incredible. And every year that's going to get bigger and bigger. It's going to grow. It's going to spread. And I am just so happy with that gamble, trying a different kind of rose. I did plant several coral knockout roses in this bed. Right now, they've just kind of finished blooming, but there's a few left on this one here. Just to have consistency throughout the bed with the similar colors, so it's not too many different things for the eye. This was another one that was one of those bare root roses, and I am in love with this, you guys. It has got two tones, multicolored. Look at that. I mean, it's just, they're just gorgeous, these little blossoms. So it has kind of a white coming out on the petals, and then it edges with a red, and it's just beautiful. This is another coral knockout, and then right here on the edge I planted two Savannah Sunset, I think is their name, roses. They're meant to do really good in the heat. They have these really, really pretty, very pretty blossoms. Let me see if I can find one kind of freshly blooming. Right here's a really pretty one. And part of why I picked these is the fragrance on them is unreal. The other day, the breeze came by while these were all blooming, and I was sitting on my bench right there, which my husband got me for Mother's Day, and I love it as an addition to my garden under the oak tree. And I could smell them from over there. It was so, so wonderful. And I've also, part of why I planted so many roses is I love to take them inside and make cuttings and put them in vases. And I've done that several times already with this garden. And then out front here, I've just got some petunias just to fill in this year. I've also got a version of, it's not, what is that called? It's not Nepeta, or it's like a hybrid version of it. I'll put it below in the video. I've got some peonies that I planted bare root. They did not blossom this year. Let me show you where those are. So this is what a peony looks like when it first comes up. It'll take a few years for it to get established and really, really get its blooms. And right next to it is some Russian sage that I planted in October. And I thought it had died because it turned into these little twigs. And then now, spring into summer, it's coming back, and I have several of them in this bed. So that will grow and multiply as well. Here is also another peony plant kind of working its way up. However, I didn't know at the time when I planted it, we didn't have these stepping stones in place. So I'm probably gonna have to move that to give it more space to grow. But you ideally don't wanna move stuff till they kind of go dormant in the fall. So I'm gonna hold off on that. All right, are you still with me, guys? I know it's such a long tour. We had a lot of space to fill in this house. We had so many beds to fill up, and it's honestly a gardener's dream. It's really what I wanted when I purchased this house and was looking into it. So behind me, I wanted to show you guys, we live on a cul-de-sac in a court, and it's beautiful. There's almost like a little park area in the middle, but there was no privacy really between us and neighbors. It was all just wide open. So I have planted a hedge behind me of dappled willow, and it's a unanimous, I don't know if that's how you say it, that is variegated. So I'm gonna walk out there real quick and just show you that. And also we put a peach tree in and another little evergreen. So this is a dappled willow up close. These are really neat because the new growth, it looks like it's blooms from a distance, but the pink, or it probably looks white on camera, that you see is actually leaves. So the old established leaves are green, the new leaves come out pink. And these get like 10 foot tall, they get massive. So it's gonna be part of our hedge. So we alternated one of those and then two of the unanimous plants that also get around 10 foot tall. But so far the dappled willows are very much outgrowing them. So there's two of those, and there's the whole row. All right, so that my tour doesn't go on and on and on, I'm gonna go through the side garden plants pretty quickly. There is a lot I still wanna do on the side of the house here. In fact, this is a future dream of mine, to turn this whole space into an incredible garden area, and to almost eliminate the grass behind me. And eventually when that hedge grows up, it'll give privacy and I could create garden rooms. I have dreams there, but we're not gonna go there yet. I've just laid the initial stages down. So let's quickly go through the side plants. We have two snowball hydrangeas here that were by my front door. They were not doing well because I overestimated how much, or no, I underestimated how much sun they would get there. And that is so important with really, you know, knowing what the sun does in your yard, but also I made a mistake. I didn't realize they couldn't handle that much sun. So we've transplanted them to the side of the house where they're a little shadier, but there's still already the damage from where they were kind of frying. But since being over here, they've actually put out some new growth. So I'm hoping I can save these because they're really beautiful, and hopefully they'll fill in. They might struggle a little bit this year because of the transplant, but hopefully they'll come back. This is a crepe myrtle. It's the one that blooms red. I'll have to look up the name of it. So we want that to fill in here and again kind of block these ugly rain spouts. And actually, it's doing amazing. I planted this 1 week ago, and the tiny leaves are the new growth. The darker leaves are the old growth. And you can see, I mean, it's grown like 1.5 feet, maybe more. It's shooting out new growth everywhere. So if you want some fast growing plants, this kind of gives you a gauge of what's really growing quickly and what's not. So, and then over here, this was another transplant. This was a purple rose. It's struggling a little bit, so I'm just kind of giving it space. It's got some kind of insect eating on it, so I'm gonna have to spray it with 7 again. Just to show you guys, it doesn't all go perfectly, right? We see these tours of people's yards and it all looks amazing, but there's problems, there's diseases, there's pests. I had to transplant this because it was in the spot in the front where I want to put the evergreens by our door. And, you know, I made the mistake. I put it there originally and I just realized we needed evergreens there. So I decided to go ahead and move it so that it could get established here. And I'm hoping it'll do okay for the summer. This was one of those bare root roses that I got from Sam's Club. This is also signs of pest. You can see the white spots. So I really need to get out here and spray this one with 7, but it does have a really pretty peach rose. So I'm just gonna be patient with it. This is a flower, I think it's a rose bush that was here when we moved in. So I'm not sure what it's gonna be. If it ends up being ugly, it hasn't put out any blossoms yet. It looks like it's struggling a lot. I will probably have to rip this out. So I'm just being patient and filling in this area. We put 2 knockout roses here to fill in under, this is our dining room window. So eventually these will get up to the height of the window and just be really pretty to look out over the edge. And they also, I should have said, this whole side of the house gets full sun. So these are all sun plants. I have some shade gardens in the back that I will cover in a separate video, but mainly I haven't really done those fully yet, so I don't want to talk about them yet. Right here is a lilac that I actually transplanted from the front as well. See, I make mistakes, guys. I had to move a lot of things around. I originally thought I wanted this up front, and I needed the spot for the evergreen that I put in its place. So I moved it here. These get really tall. These can get almost as tall as these windows, maybe even taller. So it'll just really fill up this wall over here. We just kind of have an ugly hose box right now while I'm getting all these plants established and watering them. This is a holly that we had them rip out when we moved in, and it is aggressive and it's coming back. So if you want a plant that just does not die, hollies are tried and true. But man, these leaves, they're just so prickly. I'm not a huge fan, but I will probably let that be. These are strawberry Sunday hydrangeas. We just planted these. I've flanked either side of this rose bush with them, and they will get massive with cone-like blooms. It's a Panicle hydrangea that will start off green, turn white, and in the fall they turn like a light pink. It's just so beautiful. These have just been planted, so I will keep you all updated on what those do. These are drift roses around the edge here, pink to fill in. And this flower was here before, so I don't know what it was, but I'm kind of babying it and trying to bring that rose bush back. And then welcome to my weed garden. In the back here, this is the area I haven't really tackled. I'll explain that. We popped 2 little baby red roses back here. We looked this plant up because it was here before. I think it's called spiderwort. I'll have to double check that. My husband used some kind of plant finding app to figure out what this is. So I've left it for now. It may not stay. Over here, I have lots of weeds that I have to get in and pull. This whole area was covered with ivy that I've been massively trying to pull out and tackle. It is such a headache, guys. Just beware before you ever plant ivy that you'll be fighting it like your entire time. And eventually we need to kind of redo the deck area anyways. The deck is falling apart. It's just not structurally very good right now. It's got a lot of areas that are just the wood's kind of rotting or broken. And so I'm not jumping the gun too much to plant this area because if this has to go under construction, I don't want to mess up any future plants. And they had whatever this is planted all along the edge of the deck here. It's putting up some kind of bloom, and I have no idea what these are. I will be fascinated to see when they bloom. My husband thinks it's a type of daylily. They spread incredibly, so I have no idea what these are. So if you know, put that in the comments. And then just to kind of show you the view of the backyard and what we're working with, we have an oak tree and a tulip tree there that provide beautiful shade. The sun sets over there in the evening, and then our yard kind of you know, the view goes into the neighbor's yard there. So I have a lot of beautiful spaces. I'm gonna pan back around. We also have 2 dogwood trees. We have some dead spots where we had them grind up old tree stumps when we moved in, and we're still trying to grow grass on that. In summary, that's my garden spaces. I have lots of dreams for this. The biggest thing is I want my garden to feel inviting. I want it to be a place of peace. As a mom of 4 kids, I love to be able to come out here, water my plants, look at the flowers, look at my roses, and just relax a little bit, take a deep breath. And so, you know, I get joy from seeing them. And I thought it would be really fun to share with you guys what I've done and what my future plans are. This is not done. I feel like a true gardener is never done. We're always tweaking what we put in. And like I said, I had to move plants around. I've made mistakes. And I just hope to keep working on it to make it better. So with that all being said, I am so glad you all joined me here this evening just to sit and take in the loveliness that's here. I just feel like I've gotten it to a really beautiful place where I can sit out here and relax. Again, I want to add some more, but for now, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty content with it for this season. I think every year I'll add a little bit more and more to the garden. And also, I am back on YouTube now officially. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I needed to take a break. My kids were finishing the school year. It was too much. And now I feel like I can breathe again. It's summer and I want to keep working on some of our house projects and our outdoor projects and bring you guys along for the ride. So I am so happy you tuned in. I'm so happy to be back. And I really do love you guys. Please just say hey down below and let me know if you know any of the plants that I mentioned or got hung up on. Bye. I'll see you all next time on Life in Lilacs.